Hello, this is Ms. Schrader. Today we are going to be talking about Mesopotamian city-states. My students, you need a piece of paper and something to take notes with. When you're done, you're going to be giving me 5 complete sentences on the subject of Mesopotamian city-states. So let's go ahead and get started. The picture you're looking at is showing a Mesopotamian city-state. So what you're seeing is you've got this large city, and they were some of the largest cities in the world at that time, some of them up to 30,000 people. So that's a huge amount of people. They're walled cities to protect everyone, but outside of the city, there are small villages and farming areas that can produce food for everyone. So if you live in a city, you're normally not producing your own food, you're going to have to get the food from outside. Okay, so what you're looking at here is the city of which is one of the earliest city-states we have. And this picture, which of course is a drawing, is from about 2000 BC, so about 4,000 years ago. You should notice that, yeah, it has these high, thick walls all the way around it. If another city-state decided to attack, they're going to have a really hard time getting through those walls. And depending on the state of your city-state, you might actually close the gates every night so that people can't get in. You'll notice that outside they have the farm areas. You'll also notice that they have a canal there so that they can bring water in. And they've got a moat all the way around their city state. Part of the reason for that would be to make it more difficult for intruders to get in. The other reason would be, of course, to make sure they have fresh water. But they have a means by which they can get materials in from the nearby river. I believe they're mentioning this is the Euphrates River. Um, they're mentioning that the city state would be filled with houses and shops. You'll notice towards the back and on the right, they have a large temple, a ziggurat, so that they can be praying to their gods. They've got some main streets, but also a lot of the smaller streets are going to be very small and very narrow. Part of the reason for that would be to prevent intruders or make it hard for intruders to have an easy time getting through the town. Here you can see Mesopotamia, the area between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, and some of the very early city-states that were in this area. Those would include Uruk, Kish, Umana, and Ur. To have a successful city-state, you would need to have a strong king or leader. The picture we have here, the man in the center, this is King Ur-Nammu of the city-state of Ur. He reigned from between 2112 and 2094 BCE. Um, this actually has writing on it, which can be translated. It says that it is King Ur-Nammu, the great man, king of Ur. And you need your great king, one, to lead your army to protect your city state from attack. You need him to organize how the food is going to be distributed to people who are in the city and who do not grow food themselves. And so basically, he's the one who's going to be organizing things and making sure everything's taken care of. I mentioned this a minute ago, but another thing you're going to need in order to have a city state would be a form of writing. The Mesopotamians used cuneiform, which you can see here. Cuneiform basically translates as wedge writing because they use a wedge type item to make these marks in clay. Um, this type of writing is going to be used for some of the most basic stuff. How much corn is this particular farmer producing? How much corn is going to be needed to feed the population of our city state? The king would like this particular person to check and find out whether or not another city state is planning to attack us. Some really basic stuff as well as some really serious stuff. Things like, we need to build the walls higher and thicker to keep our city state safe. A Mesopotamian city-state would have had a series of gods. The Mesopotamians were polytheistic. They had many gods. They're showing several of them here. The city-states may have had some of the same gods. They also may have had different gods. So maybe the city-state that's attacking you uses your main gods, but has some different ones as well. or maybe you've got a main god that they don't use, but the more minor gods are the same. But the religious services in your city state would have been important. The idea is you need the gods to protect you, to give you the right amount of rainfall, to water your crops so that people can eat, making sure that you don't have too much water, and of course, to make sure that your city state is protected from attack. This is the Great Ziggurat of Ur. It's still standing. And the purpose behind a ziggurat was manyfold. One of the reasons that it was there was as a government building, but it is also a place of worship. So the priests would be here and they would be praying. Another thing that the priests had control over was water. So if you're a farmer and you have 200 acres of field that you need to be watered, you have to go to the priests and say, I need this. And you may need to pay the priest for it. You may need to pay the city for it. Or he may say, yeah, you need that for the crops that you're going to be giving to the city. We may be giving it to you for free. So this is what a ziggurat looks like. You could see one in the picture of Ur that was being shown. So yeah, every city state would have had something along these lines. In the early part of the 20th century, and actually all the way through the 20th century and into the modern era, excavations have been done at various different sites, including at Ur. A lot of the work done at Ur was done by a man by the name of Leonard Woolley, who was a British archaeologist. What you're looking at is the Royal Cemetery of Ur, which he was working on in the early part of the 20th century. So a lot of the stuff, when they first started looking, they weren't finding anything. They had to be digging things out of the ground. But today they have been finding huge amounts of material about ancient Mesopotamian city-states. Amongst the things they found at Ur is this bull-headed lyre. A lyre is a stringed instrument where you pluck the strings and it makes music. I'm assuming that if you look at this from the angle, you can see where the strings would have been. This is at the British Museum in London. This is an aerial photograph of Ur taken in 1927. But if we are going to compare it, and I'll show you the earlier one in a minute, with the first picture that gives you an idea of what an ancient city state would have looked like, you can kind of see as you look at this picture the outlines and the ways in which the city state would have existed. So remember, we've been talking about what is significant about ancient city states, the fact that they were much larger than any communities prior to them, that they would have had walls in order to protect their citizens, that it would have included the farmland outside since the people in the city state themselves would not be growing any food. It would have required a strong leader to keep things organized, and it would have required a writing system, gods, some sort of an organizational system as well. All right, my students, you're going to be giving me 5 complete sentences on what you found interesting, educational, and important about Mesopotamian city-states. Thank you.